Wild, wild country we're living in. Also, that's the name of a docuseries on Netflix. Came out many years ago. If you have not seen it, you should definitely look into it. It's highly entertaining. You probably will not be able to believe that it's real because it's so outlandish, but actually, that's how reality is. It is more outlandish and more entertaining and unbelievable than anything we could ever make up. And then, we make up some crazy shit. And then a lot of times we end up like mimicking that. We mimic our art in our life, and it's just like this crazy feedback loop that happens. So that's why it actually is very important that we are very careful about what we take in through, television, reading, entertainment. Everything we're taking in is food for the mind, and you are what you eat. So maybe don't watch it. I don't know. But it is entertaining, and it follows the cult of Osho, who was an Indian guru. He became very popular in the U.S. in the 80s. His followers bought a bunch of property in Oregon. They infiltrated a small town, and then the shenanigans began. The local townspeople went to war with this cult, and what I see in our culture all around me is just a grander scale of what was going on in that much, much smaller cult in Oregon. We live in a cult, guys. Our country, our culture is a cult. And cults and culture are not the same thing, okay? Cultures can give rise to cults, but they're not the same thing just because they have, the word cult is in culture. Culture is like a medium in which something grows, right? So a cult is very restrictive, actually, and controlling. So you could have a toxic culture which could give rise to a cult, but a lot of people say things like, oh, well, every culture is a cult. No, it's not. You can have a healthy culture that gives rise to diversity and inclusivity and equity, or you can have a culture like ours which gives rise to pretending to do those things. But okay, what's I gonna say? So in part of the docuseries, you see that Osho's personal assistant, she, in order to, so they infiltrated the local government. Okay, so they took over, like their people were, they governed the whole city, right? And then they tried to go for the state. So what they did, get this, guys, they went all across the country and they bought a big bus, like a Greyhound bus, charter bus, and they went and they solicited homeless people and they bribed them and they loved bombed them, and they said, come and stay with us, we have housing, we have food, we have love for you. What they were doing is they were using them to increase their population temporarily. And, there was a string attached to this love they were giving them, and the shelter and the food and the community. You just have to vote how we tell you to. So they brought all these homeless people in. And guess what? A lot of these homeless people were homeless because they had mental health issues, and they were untreated mental health issues. So they realized when they got all these people who are a little off their rocker there in their community, that they were hard to control. And so, what they started doing? Every night at dinner, they gave them a glass of beer and they put drugs, barbiturates. They were drugging them. They put drugs in the drink. So they were subduing them. They were tranquilizing them so that they could easily manipulate and control them. And then once these people voted in the way that they wanted, guess what they did? They put their asses back on the bus and they dropped them off where they found them. And they abandoned them. Now, doesn't this sound very familiar? Okay, maybe not exactly the same as what goes on in this country, but it sure does rhyme. You know? Like, how many veterans do you see on the side of the street, you know, missing limbs, begging for change? They gave up their health, their mobility for their country. All right, that's what they were told. You're going to fight for your country, and we love you, you know. And proof of that is that we celebrate you every year on the 4th of July by triggering you with sounds of bombs and explosives that you probably heard as you were being attacked by the enemy and having your limbs blown off. And now that that's the case, and you can't work, well, we don't have any support for you, and we don't have any help for you, and this is, yeah, I don't know, here's a wheelchair. Go beg. Yeah, we use people up in this country. I'm saying we because we're all complicit in it by continuing to go along with it, you know. But we also drug everybody. Everybody's on drugs, and I'm not judging anyone. Okay, I was on drugs. I was on prescription medications, because I needed it to be able to function, and my nerves were so shot, and I was so depressed and anxious and just crawling out of my skin, and knowing that what I was participating in was not in alignment with my heart or my destiny. I knew that, and there was a constant battle going on inside of me. And this is like the vast majority of people. We weren't made to be slave wages. We weren't made to just drone away, just to barely get the bills paid and do it all over again the next day. You know, we weren't made for that. And so because we weren't made for that, and that's how we're living, we find ourselves full of angst and unease and sickness. And so we go to a doctor and we get a pill. We get drugged. You know? Captors drug their victims. Okay, if you're going to kidnap somebody and you want to keep them quiet and keep them subdued and under control, one of the best ways to do that is drug them. Yeah, so this is what happens in cults. And I think people are waking up to this. Here's the thing too, is that if you are on some sort of prescription medication, your body becomes dependent upon it. If it's something you're taking regularly, okay. Now there's some medications that you just take as needed, like for anxiety, maybe for having a panic attack or something. And, you know, that could be helpful, but a lot of people become dependent upon that and addicted to it, and they overuse it, and then their body becomes addicted to the point that they will go through withdrawals if they don't have that medication. And for some of these medications, those withdrawals can actually be deadly or cause such severe side effects that you will wish you were dead. And I'm telling you this as a person who went through this, who went through akathisia, who went through anhedonia. Akathisia is where you can't stop moving your body. You look like a crackhead. Okay? And because you can't stop moving your body, you can't sleep. So then you have insomnia. So you walk in circles for days, for weeks, without sleeping. Guess what happens? Then you go psychotic. Guess what happens then? They throw you away. They lock you up. And they give you more pills against your will, because now you're the ward of the state or whoever, you know, you've been deemed to be unsafe. because of the pills you were on, right? So you got to be careful with these things, guys. Like, I'm not judging anyone who's taking a pill or is going down that road. No, not whatsoever. This is just I've been concerned for a while now that this could be weaponized against people. It is weaponized against people in a certain kind of way. Like, the taking of the drug itself, the administering of the drug itself is a weapon. Okay, it's a way to control us. But you can take that away from a person, okay, in order to harm them, to keep them in line, to keep them in check, to destroy them. Okay, these pills, they don't grow on trees, guys. They're made in a lab. They're a cocktail of chemicals. And so at any given time, the labs can shut down, the pills can go away, but your body's still going to be in need of them in order to not go through withdrawals. So with everything that's going on in the world, I'm very concerned that that's either going to happen, that someone's going to do that on purpose as an attack on people, to cause mayhem, can you imagine what the streets would look like if all of the people in the world, or in this country, in the United States, all of a sudden didn't have access to their mental health medications? Guys, I'm telling you, it's going to be something out of a damn horror movie. And I think it's going to happen at some point. I really do. Whether like I said, whether it's on purpose or everything shuts down and the grid shuts down and there's no way for these things to be made or transported. I do believe we are going to find ourselves in a situation where people do not have access to their medications. And the point here is that if you're on a medication that you don't absolutely have to take, it might be a good time to consider finding some sort of holistic alternative and a way to begin weaning yourself off of these prescription drugs, which you can only obtain through this system, through this industry. Okay, and they can hike the prices. They can just deny you access to them altogether, and that happens to people sometimes. Their insurance just says, "Oh, we're not going to pay for that anymore." You know, so I'm concerned about this. I really am. Okay, and this is a cult, and it's not a cult that cares about us. Okay, it's sociopathic in nature. So this is a culture that is a cult, but not every culture is a cult, and we need to start thinking about how to create a new culture that gives rise to real diversity, real inclusivity, real equity, real health, real wellness. You know, but it is wild.